Hi, I'm Barbara Lucas, and welcome to the Green Room, where we explore the environmental topics that green up our world. Today our topic starts with something as simple and all-American as Girl Scout cookies, but which ultimately connects to questions about complex global issues such as rainforest destruction, species extinction, and climate change. And here to help us understand the connections are two of Ann Arbor's most prominent environmentalists, Madi Vorva and Rhiannon Tomtishen. Welcome to the show, Madi and Rhiannon.
Thanks for having us.
So you two are high school seniors going into seniors?
We'll
right?
be juniors next year.
Oh, okay. All right. Thank you very much. So in the short time that you've been doing this, you have had more media exposure than most adults. It's really amazing. You've been on ABC World News Tonight. You've been on NPR. You've been on Time Magazine. I Googled your names on the internet and came up with almost 500,000 hits. That's amazing. I tried to tell my 10-year-old nephew in Iowa about you. He knew all about you. I tried telling my cousin in Asheville, North Carolina about you. She knew all about you. It's really great. I'm so thrilled that you are doing what you're doing. Tell us what it is that you're doing and how you got started on it.
Well, in 6th grade, we decided to work together. We became best friends through school. And since we were both Girl Scouts, we decided to work together to earn our Girl Scout Bronze Award. And so in order to do that, we had to choose a cause we were passionate about and then advocate for it within our community. And because we had been so inspired by Dr. Jane Goodall and her work with the chimpanzees, we researched another great ape, the orangutan, and for the past 5 years now, have been working to advocate for the orangutan.
It's really, you've done so much in such a short amount of time. What are some of the things that you started doing to work on this?
Well, we were doing research and realized that there are 3 main reasons orangutans are extinct today. One of them is palm oil. Their rainforest habitat is being cleared so that palm oil plantations can be grown, and so we made presentations in our local Ann Arbor community. We talked to Girl Scout troops and our school, Green Hills Middle School and High School, to advocate for this cause as well. And we had earned our Girl Scout Bronze Award. We were so inspired and we wanted to continue our project, so we started looking at products that contain palm oil, discovered that Girl Scout cookies in fact does contain palm oil, and decided that we needed to show Girl Scouts USA that they needed to find an alternative and make sure that their cookies were environmentally safe. So we started reaching out and working with other Girl Scouts across the country to make this change with Girl Scouts USA.
And I guess there's 17 different types of Girl Scout cookies and just one of them doesn't have it?
Well, that's what we had heard, but then this morning we were doing research because we wanted to check that. And there's 2 different bakers and they each made 8 different types of Girl Scout cookies. And as far as we could tell from the nutrition labels, every single variety of Girl Scout cookies contains palm oil.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, we're wondering why Girl Scout cookies started using palm oil when you told me that it's only been, about 5 years that they've been doing it?
Right. What used to be used in the cookies was partially hydrogenated soybean oil, and then the whole trans fat issue came into play, and so palm oil is trans fat free. And so it was a health concern, and so they switched to palm oil because it is a trans fat free oil.
But I guess there's some controversy as to whether or not that's really better than some other types of oils. It's not a clear-cut black and white issue, I guess.
Right. There's obviously a lot of environmental and human rights issues with palm oil, but then also, even in terms of healthiness, palm oil is not a super healthy oil. It contributes to heart disease and raises cholesterol levels, and so, they were trying to get away from the trans fat, but unfortunately they just put in another unhealthy oil.
Well, let's show a 2-minute movie that will help us understand what some of your concerns are.
Millions of species live in tropical rainforests, more than any other biome.
They are home for over half of all the different kinds of plants and animals on the planet.
The UN says that globally we lose forests at a rate of almost 49 football fields a minute, and that in Indonesia and Malaysia, palm oil plantation expansion is the leading cause of tropical deforestation. The UN predicts that the demand for palm oil will more than double by 2030 and triple by 2050, and that 98% of the forests in Indonesia will be gone as early as 2022.
Less than 10% of the palm oil we buy is certified as produced sustainably. The UN calls the current status of the remaining orangutans a conservation emergency.
The destruction of tropical rainforest is responsible for 15% of current global greenhouse gas emissions.
5% of global emissions are coming from Indonesia, which is more than all the cars, trains, buses, and planes in the U.S. combined, making Indonesia third behind the U.S. and China as the largest greenhouse gas emitters.
The video mentions that there's something called sustainably produced palm oil. What is that?
There's an organization called the Roundtable on Sustainable Palm Oil, which is made up of major corporations that are involved in the supply chain of palm oil, and also different nonprofits who are working together to make sure that palm oil is produced in a sustainable manner and that palm oil can be tracked to the individual plantations. However, only 6% of all the palm oil produced is considered truly sustainable, and so there are questions, is this Our Spo certified palm oil truly sustainable, because the industry has just been growing at such a rapid pace.
It's probably hard to monitor all that's going on. And what are some of the objections to Our Spo certification? I hear that there's some controversy about that.
Well, one thing is that the Our Spo certification doesn't take into account the greenhouse gas emissions that come from clearing the rainforest land in order to build these plantations. And so a lot of environmental organizations and consumers are concerned about that because they have not addressed that issue yet. And also it doesn't address secondary forests. So if loggers come in and they log the big trees in the forest, but the rest of the rainforest is still left, that's considered secondary forest. And under the Our Spo guidelines, that can still be cleared even though it's still rainforest land.
And can orangutans still live in secondary forest?
Unfortunately, orangutans cannot. They are solitary animals that need huge vasts of land. They have huge territories, and they actually nest in trees every single night, so that is not, suitable habitat for them.
Mm-hmm. But I guess it's better than palm oil plantations in terms of there's still chance for the stuff to regenerate?
Absolutely. Rainforests are constantly growing. There are also other animals that, can live off of these secondary forests, and these rainforests are constantly regrowing. So it is, slowly but surely it'll regrow and become suitable again.
Mm-hmm. So you'd like to see the secondary forests maintained as orangutan habitat?
Right. If the secondary forests were maintained, as well as if they addressed the greenhouse gas emissions, I think the Our Spo certification would be a little bit stronger.
Mm-hmm. And one thing I'd read that the Rainforest Action Network doesn't like about Our Spo certification is that it allows conversion of peatlands, which I had never heard about, but I guess there's a lot of them in Indonesia. What are they and why are they so important to the environment?
Peat is made up of partially composed vegetation, and it's underwater normally, and so they have to drain these peatlands in order to make room for the plantations, and by doing so, the organic carbon that's been trapped under the peat for hundreds of years is released into the atmosphere as carbon dioxide, and so obviously the greenhouse gas emissions are a huge concern, but then also if they set fire to the peatlands in order to clear them that way, the fires can stay burning underneath the ground and they can smolder for tens, hundreds of years, which is obviously another huge concern.
Yeah, creating lots of carbon.
Right.
To the Yeah, I read that the problem with renewable fuels being judged as great for the environment is that sometimes if they're grown on, such as the peatlands, there's going to be more carbon dioxide emitted than would have been if we had used fossil fuels, which is amazing to think of. So the American Palm Oil Council, when you go to their website, they're very much in favor of palm oil, of course. They say it's very environmentally friendly, especially when you compare it to other cash crops that could be grown in those areas. What do you feel are some of the drawbacks to growing a monoculture of palm oil?
Well, palm oil is used, in many products today, but we have to go back and see how it's being produced. If it's not, contributing to deforestation, then that is something. But rainforest land, which is extremely a diverse biome is being, cleared, and there are thousands of species that use this is their habitat, and indigenous communities whose land is being essentially taken from them. And you plant a monoculture, there is no habitat left, and in fact, if endangered species like the orangutans enter these plantations, bounties are placed on their heads, so they're being brutally killed. There's also runoff issues. There's no strong trees that are holding the ground firm, and so when it rains, erosion is a huge problem, and it's also affecting fishing industries as well, because all of the soil is now polluting the water.
Wow, very complex.
Yeah, very.
A lot of factors. So what are the, how serious is it for orangutans?
It is very, very serious. They are critically endangered. There is currently an estimated 40,000 orangutans left, which is a very dramatically reduced number from what it used to be. And palm oil is one of the leading causes of orangutan endangeredness or orangutan extinction. And so these palm oil industries are, essentially they're going to wipe out the entire orangutan population.
You mentioned bounties. Why would somebody put bounties on an orangutan?
Well, they're considered as pests when they enter the plantations looking for food, and so they're beaten and set afire and killed by these plantation workers who aren't making even minimum wage. There's slave labor links to palm oil productions, and so it's not just an environmental issue; it's also a human rights issue as well. And so they're seen as pests, and they aren't treated as endangered species that should be protected.
Because they go after the palm nuts probably too, right? There's nothing else for them to eat.
Yeah.
And I also read that the pet trade is a problem for orangutans, that sometimes instead of being killed, they're captured.
Right. The illegal pet trade is one of the other reasons that our orangutans are endangered. They're obviously very cute and attractive animals, and they're also, it's seen as a sign of status to have an orangutan in your home.
Oh, really?
And so unfortunately, baby orangutans will be snatched from their mothers and taken into captivity, which they should not be.
Yeah, I read that something like 2 orangutans die for every baby that's captured because they're so protective of their babies that they need to be killed before you can catch one. But that the babies are worth something like $60,000 on the black market, so it makes sense that they're trying to capture them, unfortunately. Yeah. And you also mentioned that 40,000 are left, which seems like a lot, but I've been doing a lot of reading about this, really interesting, that something like 8,000 orangutans died in a fire that was caused when those peatlands were burned. And so when you get that kind of tragic number, then your 40,000 doesn't look very large. What other animals might be at risk because of this kind of thing?
Well, the rainforest is such a diverse, community of species. There are rhinos, tigers, gibbons, other primates, orangutans. There's bird species, reptiles, amphibians. So it's not just, these orangutans. People picture rainforest and they think of the larger species, but there's insects. It's a constant, flow, and it's
the web of life.
It is the web of life, and so we're trying not only to protect one species, but a whole community as well.
The grocery shelves, we've been told there's 50%. Now you guys are telling me 30%, whatever. There's a lot of different products on our grocery shelves that contain palm oil. Can you give us some idea which ones?
Pretty much everything, mostly processed food. So pretty much any candy bar, a lot of crackers, cookies, things like that. Any sort of processed food, if you check the back of the label, there will often be palm oil or palm kernel oil in it.
Processed and packaged are kind of similar terms, right? So if you buy food and take it home and cook it yourself, you're pretty much safe in terms of being able to use the type of oil you want. Like I use olive oil, and that's great for pretty much everything I cook. The non-food items, though, can you give us some idea what kind of stuff it's in?
Sure, it's in shampoos, lotions, soaps, detergents. It's in a variety of products, and it's not usually labeled as palm oil, and so sometimes it's hard to know whether to purchase it because it's palm oil free or palm oil not, or it doesn't contain palm oil. It's called sodium lauryl sulfate, and so that's one of those names in there that you wouldn't think has palm oil in it, but it does, and so you have to be very careful, do your research. If you have any questions, write a letter to the company, let them know, ask questions, that kind of thing. But it is in a variety of products.
Yeah, I Googled palm oil products, and I came up with a website that has, I don't know if you've seen it, it's got a whole lot of different products that contain palm oil, and also a section on products that contain Our Spo certified palm oil. And the nice thing about it is it has addresses that you can write to for each of these companies that is selling palm oil products. So that would be an easy way to do what you're suggesting. To
Right, get involved.
Excuse me. Some of the things that's in it are really surprising. Well, the cosmetics, I guess there's a lot of things, type of cosmetics, but also plastics, drilling mud, candles, rubber. It seems to be ubiquitous. It's really amazing. I guess one thing people could do, for instance, with cleaning products would be to just go back to some of the simple recipes, baking soda and vinegar, stuff like that. But for instance, my laundry soap, I tried to find out if my laundry soap contains it. And of course, well, first of all, I found out that non-food items don't have to list the ingredients. So that's a problem right there. And so I went to the internet to look up what my particular brand contains, and I couldn't tell because, as you mentioned, there's this long, long list of derivatives that you don't know whether they come from palm oil or not. Right. So again, writing to the company, I love that suggestion. That's a great way to find out. So in terms of our diet, what can we do with our diet to perhaps reduce our reliance on palm oil?
Well, obviously, if you just check the back of, anything you're buying and you read the ingredients label to see whether or not it is palm oil, then you can choose whether or not to buy it. But also, if you, I think you were saying, if you cook things at home, for example, if you make cookies by yourself at home, then you can choose what type of oil to put in it, and it probably would not be palm oil. So I would say reading the ingredients labels and also making things at home are great ways to avoid palm oil.
It makes me think about the fact that, we have this obesity epidemic in our country, and probably a lot of it is because we're eating cookies and cakes and candies and things and processed food. So it's maybe a win-win situation in terms of eating less stuff that we don't need and reducing our reliance on oils that may not be so great for us. But I also was looking up alternatives to palm oil and came across a statistic that 93% of the soybean oil, canola oil, and cottonseed oil in the U.S. is GMO, genetically modified seeds, which some environmentalists are trying to avoid as well. So it seems like it's really tough to find, an oil that would be really environmentally friendly. So again, maybe changing diets to use less oil, I don't know. So I'd like to ask you, do you feel that being young has helped or hurt your cause?
I would say it has really helped. We started this project as 7th graders. We're now going to be juniors in high school. And it started small. It was for a Girl Scout Bronze Award, and it's grown immensely. We're trying to remove an ingredient from Girl Scout cookies, which isn't an easy task, but we finally secured a meeting with the Girl Scouts USA, and they have said that they are committing to working with us to find a solution. And so we've been able to learn, through Girl Scouts how to be a leader, how to advocate for your cause. And so we're just asking Girl Scouts to, practice what they preach. They are an incredible organization. We're trying to keep this campaign positive, and we're lucky to have the opportunity to advocate what we're passionate about. And I think that being youth who are driven, who care about this issue, hopefully, will set an example as well for other kids to research an issue that you care about and don't be afraid. Make a stand, and you can do anything if you're kids.
Great, we love that. That's just great. Speaking of feeling positive, you mentioned your meeting with Jane Goodall. Tell us about the impact that has had on you.
We had the opportunity way back in 2007 to meet her at a Roots and Shoots event, which is her organization for young people. They had an event in Chicago where we got to hear her speak, and then she also went around to look at everybody's projects, and we got to present our project to her, and we had her sign our petition to remove palm oil from Girl Scout cookies. And I think that was a very inspiring day. That was probably, I think, what has kept us going over these years. That was when we were sort of in the in-between stage. We had completed our Bronze Award. We were looking for a way to take this a step further, and we're sort of looking for a way to do so. We had just learned that palm oil is in Girl Scout cookies, and so I think that's what really gave us the inspiration and the motivation to continue this project and to see it through to where we are now.
So tell us more, what is Roots and Shoots?
Roots and Shoots is her organization. She started in 1992. It is now a global network. We're actually on the Roots and Shoots Great Lakes Youth Leadership Council, and so we plan national campaigns and work with other youth all across the country to inspire other youth, essentially, to research an issue that you care about. And Roots and Shoots groups advocate for people, animals, and the environment. They're just like a Girl Scout troop or a Boy Scout troop, except for they're just a group of kids pre-K to college who, meet together, work on specific environmental and social issues.
It's great. I love the inspiration. You're so inspirational. For instance, I found a picture of you two in front of the White House holding up a sign which says, Michelle Obama, help us make, tell me what it says.
I think it said, Michelle Obama, help us make Girl Scout cookies rainforest safe.
So have you heard anything from the White House yet?
We have not yet, unfortunately. We took that picture last April when we were in D.C. for a conference. But no, we haven't heard any response yet, but I don't think we'll give up yet. Michelle's the honorary president of the Girl Scouts, and so we'd really like her to use that position to speak out about this cause and hopefully convince the Girl Scouts to make this change.
I heard that Malia Obama, when she talks to her dad about what she wants him to do during his presidency, asks him, what are you doing for the tigers? Yep. That's the main thing, because aren't the Sumatran tigers critically endangered?
They're losing their habitat as well for palm oil plantations.
So maybe you will hear something.
We're hoping.
Yeah,
we'll see.
I just am so excited about what you're doing because you're raising awareness about a topic. It goes way beyond Girl Scout cookies. It's just something not just for consumers, but also for policymakers, because these are crucial questions. The whole issue, for instance, of whether or not carbon credits should be given for renewable fuels across the board, or whether they should be giving carbon credits for preserving rainforests instead of growing biofuels on them. These are really, really crucial questions, and it's just so exciting to me that two people from our hometown are getting international attention to this cause. I'm really thrilled. So tell us, how can people get more information about your project?
We have a Facebook page, Project Orangs, O-R-A-N-G-S, that they can check out. If they want to learn more about orangutans, they can check out redapes.org, which is an organization called Orangutan Outreach that we work very closely with as well.
Okay. And we'll also have links to the different things we've been talking about today on our website. So I wonder, is there anything else that you would like to add to the program today? You've been asked questions all around the world. You must get lots of different types of questions about it, but whatever you do, it's been great. I've been listening to you on various radio shows. You're always really with it in terms of your knowledge. You must be trying to study this every day. How much time are you spending on it?
That is a great question, especially over this past year since the project has really grown. I would say, we spend at least an hour every day on it, but often, 2 or 3. On the weekends, we will have these, pretty much I will just sit there all day and we'll work on emails or strategy. So I would say this project has become a huge part of our life, and we put a lot of time into it, but it's been really good to see, what has happened. It's been very fruitful and very rewarding.
Well, with the internet now, there is so much information about it, so that it's just a fascinating topic, way to learn for kids and adults to learn about all kinds of different things, ranging from diet to the environment and global warming. It's just really interesting. So thank you so much for bringing it to our attention. You can watch the archive of this interview and get links to more information on today's topic at ewashington.org/greenroom. Thanks for joining us here today in the Green Room.